It was supposed to snow. Every year, the movies, the postcards, the songs, they all conspire to tell us a singular lie, that this Christmas, the world will be made anew, nestled under a vestal blanket of snow. But every year it's the same. A slate grey sky, a drapery of rain drawn to mark the passing of another year. Peace on earth, goodwill to all, endless wars, contempt for all. The new year is just another mile marker in a race to the bottom of a bottomless well of inhumanity. But never mind that shit, because it's time for the MMA Review of the Year. This year brought to you by DJ Diamond Dave.
I throw my hands up in the air sometimes, singing, hey, oh, baby, let's go. Well, we're at this club, we're gonna go all night. We're lighting up just like dynamite.
Get ready for fun. But first, a requiem for those we lost in 2025.
Sometimes singing, hey, oh, baby, let's go.
January, traditionally the first month of the year. Unless you're going by the lunar calendar, you guys can skip ahead to February to start this video. For those of you operating on the Persian calendar, you can skip ahead to March. And for those of you using the Ethiopian and Kutatash calendar, I think that one is September. Oh look, just figure it out for yourselves. I've always found January to be more depressing than day drinking, and January 2025 did nothing to buck that trend when we were greeted with the news that Tony Ferguson, owner of the longest losing streak since Glass Joe, was threatening his fans with a fight announcement for 2025. In an emoji-riddled Instagram post, Ferguson ominously stated, "Stay tuned and watch the magic unfold," which for longtime Ferguson fans translated as "watch me train by fighting an invisible minotaur and headbutting a wall for 6 months before losing a fight to a Fortnite streamer on the undercard of an event headlined by Mr. Beast." The January blues also hit former UFC card warmer Paige Van Zandt, as she announced that she was no longer content with conquering the lofty heights of Power Slap and was coming out of MMA retirement to join a shadowy new fight promotion named GFL. Little was known about GFL, but Van Zandt said, "They are picking up anybody and everybody who has a name in this sport that's a free agent." And when Van Zandt said anybody, she meant fucking anybody, as only a day after Van Zandt's signing, the GFL also announced that they had signed Cain Velasquez, an unusual choice considering that he was quite literally days away from a sentencing hearing for attempted murder. I guess the GFL were confident that whatever role they had lined up for Cain could be done while working remotely from a Santa Clara County prison cell. GFL were raiding MMA's retirement homes like ICE agents at a quinceañera, as most of its signees had been in active service for longer than the fucking Maxim gun. In just under a month, they had gone from essentially non-existence to having signed Tony Ferguson, Rashad Evans, Uriah Hall, Henan Barrow and Yoel Romero, to name but four. Thrilling news for everyone still living in 2009. January also saw former lightweight GOAT Khabib Nurmagomedov decide to start running his mouth about Ireland in an interview for the PFL.
Brother, Ireland don't have fighters, but let's be honest. How many fighters do you know from Ireland? Paul Hughes and Conor, and who else? Oh, there is no fighter, brother.
Yeah, well, joke's on you, Khabib, because the PFL doesn't have any fighters either. And while we may be lacking in fighters, show me the Dagestani equivalent of that one time a guy slipped on the ice in an RTE news report, and the entire country thought this was so funny that if you ask anyone who lives here, hey, remember that time that guy slipped on the ice, they'll know exactly what you're talking about, because 10 years later, we erected a fucking plaque to commemorate that. Beat that, Dagestan. On January 12th, Khabib found out the hard way what talking shit about my hood gets you, when he was involved in a disagreement over who gets the extra legroom by the emergency exit that resulted in him being removed from an airplane. I'm not saying I had a hand in this, but what I will say is that guy who slipped on the ice sends his regards. Big news broke in the world of social media as Dana White was appointed to the board of directors at everyone's grandparents' favourite social media company, Meta. White's own usage of social media can best be described as cringe-maxing, consisting mostly of clips of him desperately trying to look cool by hanging out with the Nelk cretins or OnlyFans models young enough to be his granddaughter. So while it may seem unusual to have him on the board of one of the world's biggest social media companies, an out-of-touch boomer with no idea what young people care about is a perfect fit for a company whose user base is mostly dead people, boomers, and bots pretending to be boomers. A more cynical person might say that this was an attempt by Zuckerfuck to curry favour with Trump after he sued Facebook and threatened to jail Zuckerberg for life, but no, I'm sure this is all just part of Zuck's rebrand as cool MMA guy, a bit that we are all totally buying. Alleged MMA promotion One Championship reminded everybody that they occasionally take a break from photoshopping Itsuki Hirata's thirst-trapped thumbnails long enough to stage an MMA fight, when a man named Jabir Jabrailov became responsible for about 80% of all slam attacks for the calendar year of 2025.
Oh, big shot there from Jabrailov, completely flooring Urikov, but he pops right back up. Takes more shots now from Jabrailov, and another Uranagi body slam as he is just completely obliterating his opponent in the first 40 seconds here. Oh, and another slam, just bouncing the head.
After a career spent mostly against the octagon fence, Holly Holm announced her retirement. And let's be honest, Holly is kinda like the Foo Fighters of women's MMA. One 10 out of 10 album, followed by a career of drudgery. But even if 90% of her post-Ronda matches were cage-humping-ish fests, she still deserves to be remembered as a hero in the MMA world for being the first woman to desecrate Ronda Rousey and give us possibly the single greatest moment in MMA history.
Clinch! Head movement, good jab, jab! Move, clinch! 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 No!
To the relief of legs everywhere, January also saw the retirement of Chris Weidman, or as he liked to be called, the Chris. That's weird. The script just says, say something nice about the Chris's career here. In the world of US politics, it was Inauguration Day, or as Conor McGregor called it, Day 3 of a week-long bender. In one of the more bizarre scenes ever witnessed in Washington, professional dickheads the Paul brothers were there to help usher in the new administration, alongside a suspiciously energetic Conor McGregor.
Use annexes to me, you understand that? Side jobs. A little side job.
No,
Yeah.
you can't even do your main job. How you gonna do a side job?
Yeah, that's right.
And when the Paul brothers are showing more restraint and decorum than you in any given situation, you know things have spiraled helplessly out of control. And I'd also just like to extend my finest fuck you to Conor simply for making Logan Paul seem like the most sensible person in this story. But Conor's January news cycle didn't end there, as proving that there is no sport that cannot be made worse by his presence, rape enthusiast McGregor took to the pitch for a friendly game of soccer. Not content with hospitalizing mascots at basketball games, Conor turned a friendly game of five-a-side into a cross between the FA Cup final and the fucking Purge, seemingly intent to hospitalize as many guys who have to be up for work in the morning as possible. Post-match, Conor composed a haiku to express his love of ruining things for others. I break jaws with my shoulder and noses. I get the ball any pitch, anywhere. Moses.
Cool.
The big pay-per-view event for the month was UFC 311, which was definitely one of the 12 cards the UFC were contractually obligated to provide per calendar year. Makhachev vs Moicano was the first of many shovelware offerings by the UFC in 2025. Moicano secured his spot in the main event the only way he'll ever secure a main event, by being a stand-in for someone more talented. After Arman Tsarukyan was forced out of the main event due to injury, Moicano stepped up to fill the role of cage warmer for Islam Makhachev, in a fight whose outcome was more predictable than the alphabet. But January had one last surprise in store, as Bryce Mitchell launched and sank his own podcast called Arc Insanity. According to the podcast's description, Bryce is, quote, an Arkansan with some common sense and sanity. And I would like to politely disagree. I think Arc Insanity is a condition serious enough that it should be entered into the DSM-5 if episode 1 is anything to go by, as Mitchell appeared to be attempting to speedrun hate speech.
I honestly think that Hitler was a good guy. They were gaying out the kids, the greedy Jews, queering out the women, they were queering out the dudes. You know what our first tranny surgery ever was? Queer books, because Hitler didn't want a bunch of queers destroying his nation.
If anyone was wondering, this man did not return for episode 2. At time of writing, Arc Insanity has not made it past its second episode. Heartbreaking news for all 119 of its subscribers. It should be noted that Mitchell currently resides in a state that ranks 39th out of 50 for literacy and once drilled a hole through his own nutsack.
She hit the floor. Next thing you know, she'll get low.
February arrived, and with it, we got our first look at the commentary lineup for everyone's favourite vaporware MMA promotion, the GFL, featuring Bappa Schaub, Mike Goldberg, and Robin Black. This lineup kinda makes me think the GFL were purposefully stepping on every rake within leg distance. The only way this constellation of circus clowns could be any more annoying to listen to on a broadcast would be if they replaced whoever these women are with an iPhone that screams every time it's unlocked and a big mouth Billy Bass that sings Puddle of Mud's She Hates Me. The GFL held a draft to announce which fighters would be joining the promotion, and among the numerous signees were former UFC light heavyweight title challenger Alexander Gustafsson. Gus took to the media to explain why he had signed with the GFL instead of re-signing with the UFC. In a bleakly depressing statement, Gustafsson explained, "I'm not at the UFC level anymore. I don't have the real fire anymore or the hunger. It was a decision to make, and I believe I've made the right decision." which is not exactly a ringing endorsement of the kind of action you would expect from what people were already nicknaming the Geriatric Fight League. But the best was yet to come, because as part of a wave of self-promotion, GFL dropped the hardest edit you could ever ask ChatGPT to spit out on the $5.99 a month plan.
You oughta know best, this ain't no chess. I'm a dragon, my town, my cage, my nest. Protect your neck, oh, cause you come next. Yeah, you oughta know best, come clean my mess. Have a dragon, my team, my honor, my chest. I'm haunted by a mountainous silhouette lurking under my skin, constricting my reason, it's fiending to break out and spin. Into carnage, I harness the havoc so I don't slip into sin. But the appetite's massive, I practice the path of discipline. Each elbow's a prayer, every knuckle's a vow. Keep darkness in captivity so it may not devour my sanity, clarity, both teetering on the brink. I'm scaring me, apparently I'm bleeding black ink.
That's what I call motherfucking bars, nigga.
What? You know nothing about that.
Like, that's real hip hop.
At this point, I'm fairly confident the GFL weren't so much stepping on rakes as they were diving headfirst into a vault full of them Scrooge McDuck style. I'm not entirely sure what prompt they entered to produce this howling abomination, but I'm guessing at least one of them was Chris Weidman Avengers porn parody. AI-generated fighters, AI-generated music, and an AI-generated giant ant for some reason. All that was missing were some AI-generated fucks to give. This may be the single worst piece of promo material ever produced for anything, ever, and that includes that disturbing wine advert that Steven Seagal did.
Done well.
I hope that was as good for you as it was for me.
I have a feeling it may have even been better.
Well, if you need your bottles opened, you know who to call.
Maybe I'll whistle.
You do know how to whistle, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
February also saw Dana attempt to tackle Bryce Mitchell's Arkansanity debacle.
Turning them all into gays.
Rather than suggest Hitler enjoyer Mitchell get some Arkan therapy or Arkan sensitivity training, Dana set a precedent that Bryce and his Arkan Schutzstaffel Appreciation podcast can basically say whatever he wanted without repercussion from the UFC. Dana said, "We have to protect free speech." Which would be a nice sentiment if Dana ever expanded that freedom to journalists who dare ask him any kind of difficult questions. Hot on the heels of conquering the lofty heights of TikTok slap slop, February saw Dana and TKO group owner Ari Emanuel seek to expand their tentacles into the world of boxing. The only barrier to entry being that pesky alley act that protects boxers from shady promoters seeking to exploit them. Emanuel said, "Who knows what's going to happen with the alley act? And then Dana has a plan for boxing, we'll see." Meanwhile, Dana was rumoured to have said, "That's a real nice alley act you got there. Be a real shame if something were to happen to it." Unfortunately for Ari and Dana, TKO Boxing's pay scale was later leaked, which hilariously revealed that for a title defence in TKO Boxing, you could earn a whopping $750,000. Which sounds nice, until you realise that Alexander Usyk earned 176 times that to defend his title. Speaking of fighters being paid a pittance to risk their lives, UFC 312 Strickland du Plessis took place on February 9th in the spider-riddled hellscape of Australia. And here's the thing, you guys, it was time once again for Crocodile Dundee to claim that he was going to quite literally kill a man by pounding his skull into a fine pink mist and feasting upon his still beating heart. Because I don't know if you know this, but Sean Strickland is a psycho who has spilled more blood than an abattoir on an Alaskan fishing boat. So after 5 rounds of plotting inaction, during which the only thing Sean killed was the audience's desire to live, Dricus successfully defended the UFC Middleweight Championship, and Sean went off to write some death threats in his live journal. With his second successful defense under his belt, we all looked forward to a long and dominant title reign from middleweight king Dricus du Plessis. Post-fight, world-renowned cardio kickboxing instructor turned wife slapper Dana White took a moment to share his opinion on the Australian media coverage of the event.
You have the biggest pussies I've ever seen in the media in my life. I saw a story where a guy was like, I saw Dana do a podcast with the premiere and it physically made me sick. Holy fucking shit. You guys have to have the biggest pussies of all time.
Polish MMA promotion Fame MMA gave us one of the more unfortunate ways to get injured in a fight, after a fighter named Marcin Roszak fought and beat a man named Paweł Tyburski. Tyburski's twin brother then arrived and attempted a playful takedown that resulted in Marcin's knee exploding like that scene with the gremlin in the microwave.
Tutaj coś się wydarzyło, nie wiem czy nie doszło do urazu przy tym sprowadzeniu Piotrka Tyburskiego. Oj, 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 oj.
Marcin may want to consider alternative career options, as this incident occurred exactly 2 years to the day that he broke his arm in an MMA match. Proving that only the good die young, the new UFC glove was quietly taken out behind the woodshed to be put out of its misery. After less than a year's service, commentator John Gooden announced that the gloves were officially being retired in an offhanded comment made at UFC Vegas 102. And in a way, the new glove's lifespan mimicked that of the average UFC fighter, from being introduced as the next big thing in April to ultimately being shit-canned on an Apex card no one was watching 9 months later. February also saw the release of the top 100 highest paid athletes list, a list that comprised boxers such as Alexander Usyk, Tyson Fury, and proving that there is a god but he despises his creations, Jake Paul, who ranked 52nd after earning $48 million for the year.
Oj, 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 oj.
Not a single MMA fighter on the entire planet, in any promotion, man or woman, earned enough money to crack the top 100. In unrelated news, TKO owner Ari Emanuel's net worth reached billionaire status in 2025. Maybe all the fighters giving themselves CTE for the price of a second-hand Kia Ceed could club together and buy him a cake. And February came to a close with heartbreaking news, as the UFC announced they were planning on doing less Apex cards for 2025. I know, we all love the Apex. We love seeing fighters walk out to less fanfare than you'd get for the release of a new Diddy album. We all love that it's so quiet we can practically hear Michael Bisping moisten his eyeball. And we all love that there's at least 5 Apex cards per week, and that some of them even have fighters you might recognize on them. So I think we should all just take some time to process this information as we mourn the loss of about 10% of the 5,000 Apex cards that were lined up for 2025. Rolling Thunder watch. I'm a Rolling Thunder girl, till I'm 6 feet under girl. The Rolling Thunder is the single greatest move in martial arts. It's a real-life EX gauge attack and a fistic fuck you to the laws of physics and fight etiquette. As such, the Rolling Thunder is rarer than a Sean Strickland finish. 2025 saw many attempts at a Rolling Thunder, but very few successes. At XFC 52, Jaron Lathrop landed this beautiful Rolling Thunder adjacent knockout, and while it bears some similarity to a Thunder, it is just not quite there. On Dana White's minimum wage labour force, we saw another attempted Thunder in one of the best fights of the year, Martinetti vs Volgodin. But Rolling Thunders are like airplanes. If you can't land one, don't bother trying. And at Rise Kickboxing 186 in February of 2025, Musashi Matsushita managed to successfully land what might be the only Rolling Thunder knockout of 2025.
いや、フラフラの状態で こで顔面また捉える。最後は飛び技で決めていきました。
When there's only one candidate, there's only one choice, and as the only person to successfully land a Rolling Thunder in 2025, Matsushita's flying foot to the face is the greatest one you will see this year. Rolling Thunder watch. I'm a Rolling Thunder girl, till I'm 6 feet under girl.
Got somebody sexy, tell him, hey, give me everything tonight.
March arrived with glad tidings from the world of Power Slap. While Dana had spent the year flirting with boxing, he still occasionally stopped by Power Slap's place to throw one into it. After languishing in the sunless realms of Rumble like an unflushable turd dissolving at the bottom of the bowl, Dana's second favourite slapping activity announced that it was moving exclusively to YouTube. Dana revealed that Rumble had been paying $30 million a year to host Power Slap, which leaves us with two baffling questions. Number one, how does Rumble have $30 million to throw at fucking anything? And two, what right-minded human being was paying $30 million for the privilege of hosting the combat sports equivalent of a fart joke? More surprising still was the news that a crypto company was now sponsoring Power Slap to the tune of $70 million per year. All of which begs the question, this is money laundering, right? I mean, there's no other logical explanation as to why a sport that's about as popular as Drake in a daycare centre is making this kind of money in sponsorships. The big pay-per-view of the month arrived early, and on the 9th of March, we were all treated to one of the cards that the UFC held this year, UFC 313, Pereira vs Ankalaev. Well, treated might be a strong word. Anyway.
Anyway? What do you mean, anyway?
Magomed Ankalaev is absolutely one of the fighters on the UFC roster, and after winning some fights by outperforming his opponent, he was given a shot at the title against fan favourite Pereira. Ankalaev suffers from the MMA Mandela effect, in that simply because he has the appearance of a leg humper, people assume he is a leg humper. But Ankalaev's win record has 0 submissions on it, and a perfectly even split of 10 knockouts, 10 decisions. The problem, however, is that he is quite literally a 50-50 fighter, just as likely to give you a knockout as he is a boring, point-fighting decision win. In a dark day for the light heavyweight division, Ankalaev went all 5 rounds, and ultimately won a decision, leaving the rest of us to reckon with a future where one of the most exciting champions in recent memory had been replaced with a guy more forgettable than a Blumhouse movie about amnesia. It wasn't all bad news, however, as elsewhere on the card, Mauricio Rufy produced a Knockout of the Year contender in his fight with King Green.
Wake King Green up.
But by March, and UFC 313, the UFC had fallen into a predictable pattern. Every pay-per-view so far had comprised of a solid main event propped up by a bunch of mostly inconsequential matchups. 313's co-main was Gaethje vs Fiziev, a rematch no one was looking for, featuring a man in Fiziev who was stepping in on a little over a week's notice to replace Dan Hooker. Before that, we had unranked versus unranked, and before that, there was a women's fight featuring one woman who doesn't even have a wiki page. And around now, I'd like to take the opportunity to mention that Ryzen 50 also took place this March, because of course the giant weeb who made the 3-hour-long Pride video can't go one end of year video without banging on about JMMA. And while it is true you're less likely to have heard of the majority of Ryzen's roster than you are a Captain Beefheart B-Sides record, their events have been absolute fire this year, and Ryzen 50 was no exception, featuring this Fight of the Year contender, Suzuki vs Doubtbeck. March also meant St. Patrick's Day, that one day of the year when everyone pretends to be Irish and the Irish pretend to be happy about it. St. Patrick's Day is, historically, the day when the elected leader of Ireland flies to Washington to hand the president a bowl of shamrocks and talk about our shared bond. But the only bond I care about is the one with my brothers and sisters in the Choctaw Nation. Shout out to you guys. But this is 2025, and tradition be damned. Instead of elected leaders, Washington sent up the twat signal, and McGregor answered the call. Hearing the words White House, Connor assumed it was something to do with cocaine, and was on the next flight over. World-famous sex pest McGregor spent the day at the president's leisure, posing for photos and making stultifyingly ill-informed speeches. White House spokesserpent Caroline Leavitt said, "We couldn't think of a better guest to have with us on St. Patrick's Day." And that's pretty funny because I can think of several off the top of my head, none of whom you're in danger of being raped by. The fallout from Mr. Handsy Goes to Washington was that Connor was bitten by the politics bug, and only days after his trip to the seat of power, announced his own run for the office of President of Ireland. And I'd just like to extend the middle finger of friendship to whomever it was who invited him to Washington in the first place, as the fallout from Cocaine Connie in the White House meant 6 months of suffering for the Irish people, as a man whose brain is coated in so much snow it resembles a powdered donut waged an election campaign that consisted mostly of running his mouth on Twitter. Everyone's favourite illiterate homophobe Bryce Mitchell was back in the headlines. Bryce announced that his upcoming opponent John Silva had sent legions of demons to torment him. While you may assume he meant this in a 1980s WWE promo kind of way, Bryce very literally meant that there was a legion of demons marching straight from the pits of Erebus direct to his door under the command of John Silva. If there was one saga that defined MMA in 2025, it was that of John Jones versus Tom Aspinall. Jones had not fought since November of 2024, when he defended his title by beating up a 43-year-old fireman who hadn't set foot in the octagon in 3 years. The question on everybody's lips was, when would John defend his title against interim champ Aspinall? Aspinall had already successfully defended his interim title in June of 2024, while John was preoccupied issuing booze-fueled death threats to USADA blood testers. And as of March 2025, Tom had been interim champ for longer than most people had held the actual heavyweight title for. Tom even did some light trolling by posing with a toy duck at UFC London, but fortunately, Dana White was on hand to allay all our fears. The ever-trustworthy White announced that Jones v Aspinall will absolutely, positively, no backsies, be happening at some point this year. Welcome, friends, to the 2025 Blowy Awards. As is tradition, we gather again here at the end of all things to serve up that most coveted of award, the Blowy. Our first Blowy Award for 2025 is the Johnny Walker Award for Goofiest Ass Way to Injure Yourself. In news that will come as a surprise to most fight fans, former Wheaties model Anthony Pettis actually has his own fight promotion, APFC. And at APFC 16, a fighter named Brandon Ellis tapped out only seconds into the fight for a rather unusual reason.
Oh my goodness, Blade Evans coming forward with some real aggression here in the third.
It looks like Ellis's finger is stuck in between the cage.
Like that little Dutch boy with his finger stuck in the dam, Ellis's digit was firmly rooted in the octagon. Undoubtedly having flashbacks to 2021 when a fighter lost his entire finger in a fight, Ellis immediately submitted verbally and the fight was waved off. Congratulations, Brandon Ellis, you are the 2025 recipient of the Johnny Walker Award for Goofiest Ass Way to Injure Yourself. Take a bow.
mesmo!
April arrived, and hope sprung eternal for the GFL, as it had turned out that a not inconsiderable portion of their roster had actually just been wishful thinking. The GFL draft, wherein they had announced their roster and fight schedule for 2025, was actually more akin to a military draft, in that most people who were drafted had no idea until it was too late to do anything about it. Conscientious objector Rashad Evans took to Twitter to state that he had been drafted without his consent. A fighter named Timur Valiev also posted to say that he had no idea he was on the GFL roster, and the draft came as a severe shock to Kenny Mokanowana, considering his draft announcement coincided with his fight for the PFL in Dubai. Oh, hang on, I'm just getting a text message here. Yeah, it turns out I have also just been drafted by the GFL. Things went from bad to goat-fuck catastrophe when the GFL announced that their debut event, scheduled to be held in May, had been cancelled. After throwing away opportunities to re-sign with the UFC, people like Alexander Gustafsson were now looking at essentially losing their last shot at a payday thanks to the GFL's general incompetence. Other imaginary GFL draftees, Batman, King Leonidas of Sparta, and Doom Guy, were said to be equally disappointed. Former UFC fighter and bad tattoo enjoyer Alan Belcher took to Twitter to call out the GFL.
The GFL is fucking cancelled, guys. There wasn't any proof of the money that was supposed to be paid to the fighters, and we all got screwed on this one. And man, it seems like it's all just a big, I don't know, lack of a better word, scam?
In a last-ditch attempt to salvage literally anything before this whole thing went full Ocean's Gate submersible, GFL owner Darren Owens apparently asked fighters to fight not for a guaranteed purse, but for a share of the profits. Not even a revenue share, a profit share. Given the fact that this thing was set to make less profit than a Morbius sequel, no one took him up on the offer. After a critically reviewed career, UFC light heavyweight Anthony Smith announced his retirement. Okay, this is just getting weird now. This also says, say something nice about Anthony Smith's career here. The seed of Dana and Zuckerberg's love affair began to bloom in April, as it was announced that Meta would be providing an AI-powered ranking system for the UFC. And I was lucky enough to have been given an inside look at the new AI rankings powered by Meta before they go public, so let's take a look. Hey Meta, who's the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the UFC?
Thank you for asking. Dennis Seaver is the pound-for-pound #1 fighter in the world.
Okay, well that's definitely not correct. Hey Meta, who is the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the UFC?
Every day, the white race is under attack.
Whoa, what the fuck?
Dann tritt für mich ein, so wie ich für dich eingetreten bin.
Wait a second, I recognize that voice. Oh, it's fucking Grok. A promotion called Thunder Fight produced a contender for wildest 30 seconds of fighting of 2025, when a fight between Thiago Goulart and Leonardo Mesquita descended into a maelstrom of fists and spinning shit, all capped off by some of the greatest commentary I may not be able to translate, but I can definitely understand.
Thiago já dá aquela recuada, já começa a perceber que não tá bom pra ele não! Vai pra cima o Leonardo Mesquita! Que virada! Vai pra cima! Quer definir a luta! Não! Nossa Senhora! O que apronta o Thiago Goulart!
Cara!
Dana proved that good news is like a horny Aquaman because it comes in waves. Not only had he partnered with Meta and was attempting to slap his way into the world of boxing, but April also saw the Puce One enter into an exclusive, high-stakes gambling tournament. While his independent contractors were begging for the scraps from his table after breaking themselves for his enrichment, Dana had been invited to take place in a $10 million Baccarat tournament.
Yes, $1,000 bill.
Hey, Dana, please, $50,000. It's me, no house. It's my dream, new house.
I need that bonus. I got a family at home. We just got a new place. Our other house flooded. Please, please give me that bonus.
Caesar's Palace. I clipped these guys for $1 million a night from like January, the first week of January, all the way into March.
Everything that hurts on me doesn't mean it doesn't hurt as much as seeing my mom struggle. So,
and I beat these guys for like $27 million. $27 million.
April's pay-per-view was UFC 314, Volkanovski vs. Lopez. After clearing out the featherweight division with a whopping 1 title defense, Ilia Topuro announced that he had achieved all there was to achieve at featherweight and thus vacated the title and moved to lightweight. Former featherweight short king Alexander Volkanovski and mullet enjoyer Diego Lopez were left to fight for the vacant title. But before the fight, there was the press conference, which gave us a moment of magic when an argument broke out between Lopez and Yair Rodriguez, and just keep an eye on Volkanovski's expression throughout this entire interaction.
Oh. Dímelo. Hey, culón. Eres culón, ¿sabes por qué eres culón? No le pegaron a Diego contra tú y tu equipo. Say it to my face. No le pegaron a Diego contra, no le pegaron a Marco contra tú y tu equipo. Escucha. Le pegaron a Marco entre tú y tu equipo, ¿sí o no? Esperando el momento correcto estaba para decirte esto en tu pinche cara, loco. Oh, we were waiting. Tú me las vas a pagar a mí por Marcos, güey. Y si me esperas la verga, güey. La verga, güey.
We do not deserve this man. After a 5-round war, Volkanovski reclaimed his spot at the top of the featherweight division. Elsewhere on 314, Jean Silva, with the help of Abaddon, Baal, Baphomet, and other assorted minions of Satan, submitted the hillbilly Hitler Bryce Mitchell with a ninja choke. And finally, Michael Chandler's red panty night turned to brown when Paddy Pimblett flatlined him with a flying knee. Welcome, friends, to the 2025 Blowy Awards. Our next category is the Kazushi Sakuraba Award for Best Walkout. MMA is often accused of having less theatrics than a funeral home, which is why it's so refreshing when a fighter actually gets to display some personality, like the time Israel Adesanya got to cosplay as The Undertaker. At Jungle Fight 135, Carol Foro channeled the spirit of Saku when she took walkout cosplaying to the next level. Wearing full Annabelle cosplay, Foro didn't so much walk out as she was wheeled out in a life-size doll box. But while Adesanya had a fantastic walkout and then proceeded to put on a Hall of Fame exercise in boredom, Foro backed up her theatrics with this knockout.
A Sofia tá toda sangrando, o nariz tá descendo tudo. Mais cruzado, mais Annabelle Caroline Foro! Carol Foro, you are the winner of the inaugural Kazushi Sakuraba Award for Best Walkout. Take a bow. At Polish MMA promotion KSW, the structural engineering of the octagon was put to the test when Eddie Hall faced off against fellow corned beef colossus Mariusz Pudzianowski. Not since the glory days of prime Bob Sapp had the octagon played host to such a thunderous mass of man flesh, as a combined 600 pounds of pharmacy-to-table beef spilled into the octagon that night.
Pudzianowski was a considerable step up in competition from the 2 children Eddie Hall had killed last year, but nevertheless, Hall managed to knock out Puds after 30 seconds of horse beef-fueled insanity. Staying with the world of bizarro fight sports, April also saw the first ever John Wick Invitational, which, as you may have guessed, was a bunch of dorks who borrowed their dad's wedding suits fighting over who gets to play with a toy gun. The John Wick Invitational is, in all honesty, pretty fucking great. It's almost like the sillier atmosphere of cosplay grappling allows fighters to just go for broke with the wildest options available to them, like this flying armbar. If it weren't for an even sillier evolution of grappling that we'll be discussing later, the JWI would probably be the greatest grappling event of the year. And April ended with our first glimpse into what Rock the Dwayne Johnson's own grappling cosplay session looked like, when the first trailer for his reboot of Mark Kerr's life, The Smashing Machine, dropped. Like the average Roblox player, The Rock was an old man trying to disguise himself as a kid, as for some accursed reason, this movie had made the bold stylistic choice to cast a 56-year-old Dwayne Roxon as a 20-something Mark Kerr.
I like big butts and I cannot lie. No other brothers can deny. When a girl walks in with an itty-bitty waist and a round thing in your face, you get sprung.
As rumours around the long-awaited Jones vs Aspinall matchup continued to swirl like the waters of a flushing toilet, Jones gave the handle another hard yank. John posted pictures of a shrine to himself he was in the middle of constructing, and at the end of a long and rambling masturbatory missive to his own greatness, he wrote, "The best is yet to come. The story's still being written, and if this man continued to cockblock Tom Aspinall any longer, that story's length was set to overtake all 102 volumes of One Piece." On the 10th of May, UFC 315 arrived. In the main event, we had Bilal Muhammad defending his title against Jack Walla Walla Bing Bang. But look, you know I don't give a shit about literally any of that, because this was a Shevchenko fight card. Valentina Shevchenko is the single greatest female fighter to walk this earth. You may not like it, but you will accept it. And at UFC 315, it was time once again for my warrior queen, radiant Valkyrie of the Dawn, star of my eastern sky, to defend her title from yet another low-born gutter crawler. Manon Fior had the absolute fucking temerity to claim that Valentina isn't the greatest woman in the world, and being of a Gallic persuasion, she even channeled her inner GSP to say that she was not impressed by Valentina's performance. This was an insult for which neither myself nor Valentina, Terror of the Gauls, would stand. John Jones took time out of his busy schedule of ducking Tom Aspinall to refute claims that he was ducking Tom Aspinall. This time, John's defense was simply that his life was so great and so much better than yours that it simply wasn't possible for him to duck anybody, because his life is so great. I've got people calling me a duck, meanwhile I'm living my absolute best life, Jones said, while looking around nervously every time he heard a police siren. If there was another story that defined 2025 aside from John Jones running from Tom Aspinall as if he were a breathalyzer test, it was that of champions vacating titles. 2025 saw more titles being given up than a post-Epstein Prince Andrew. Arturo Top Turo vacated his featherweight title, Later in the year, Zhang Weili would vacate her strawweight title, and in May, Islam Makhachev vacated his lightweight title and moved up to welterweight. This constant state of flux denied us the fight that most people really wanted to see, Arturo versus Makhachev, but set us up for Makhachev versus new welterweight champion Walla Walla Bing Bang, a fight that was almost certainly guaranteed to be a classic. Welcome, friends, to that most coveted of Blowy Awards, Freak Show Fight of the Year. 2025 has been a stellar year for the Freak Show fight. And our old friends at Fight Circus started the year right with a wheelchair boxing match featuring UFC Hall of Famer Mark Coleman. Despite being seated for the majority of this fight, we were still exposed to an uncomfortable amount of the 60-year-old Coleman's ass cheeks. The fight descended further into farce after the wheels metaphorically and quite literally fell off, and wheelchair boxing became regular boxing. We also saw another Dogfight Wild tournament whose main event was a 10-man MMA Royal Rumble. But this idea was like Attack on Titan, great on paper, fucking horrendous in real life. The Royal Rumble ended in just a few minutes and with barely any action, as the majority of the competitors were shoved or ran out of bounds to be eliminated. But May gave us Streamer Smash 2, the non-union Mexican equivalent of Creator Clash. Streamer Smash 2 had a 2v2 MMA fight that was about as chaotic as expected, but truly cemented its place in Freak Show history when it descended into this conga line of fisting fuckery. And for that reason, Fight Circus is still getting Freak Show Fight of the Year simply for making me look at Mark Coleman's cheeks. And in a world first, joining us live via satellite to accept this award is Fight Circus's very own ringmaster, John Nutt.
Napoleon Bonaparte, you son of a gun. Award-winning the award winners of all the awards. It feels like championship day. Live every week like it's fight week. I'd like to accept the blowy while lying down. Of course. Heyo! I'd like to accept it for all the little people out there. A lot of people say that I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. Ryder Warbrick, who I'm going to do some shows with, Zach Morris, they would disagree. Say that I'm standing on the shoulders of midgets. Climbing the mountain of adversity formed by all the little people out there. In the great words of Riff Raff, let's all just hope that with this award, I can blow up and act like I don't know nobody.
Speaking of Mark Coleman's ass cheeks, 2025 really was the year in which Coleman's cheeks were so ubiquitous I half expected to see them peering at me from the homepage of the hub. In May of 2025, Ryzen held an event named Otoko Matsuri. What does Otoko Matsuri mean, I hear you ask? It means Man Festival. The Man Fest was not just a gimmicky name, as the opening ceremony for this thing featured more man flesh than Jeffrey Dahmer's fridge. As part of the opening ceremony for Otoko Matsuri, Coleman was double-cheeked up, pounding a taiko drum, wearing a traditional Japanese fundoshi that exposed more skin than even Fight Circus dared to show. We also had street samurai Jiri Prohaska, bare-ass naked and banging a drum. Alex Pereira was in attendance, but he is apparently too much of a buzzkill to get his ass out on a pay-per-view. Even the CEO of Ryzen and former Pride CEO Sakaki Bara got half naked in a weirdly emotional moment as he fought back tears while opening the show. Otoko Matsuri was a great event, and this entire opening ceremony is uploaded to their YouTube channel, and it's honestly well worth a watch just to see what it looks like when a promotion has to actually make an effort to attract viewers. Bullshit from around the world. Russia is famous for its knockoffs, from restaurant chains like Stars Coffee to home furnishings from IDEA, or the entire cottage industry that is the Russian Harry Potter knockoffs, which include, but are not limited to, Dennis Kotick and the Order of the Pale Knights, Laren Peter and the Magic Mirror, the Tanya Grotter series, Children vs. Wizards, but this time the children are strapped. But one knockoff I was not expecting to see this year was a Russian clone of The Ultimate Fighter called Alf Reality. And being somewhat of a tough aficionado myself, I had to check this thing out. I am glad I did. I'm sure a lot of you may be thinking, but Napoleon, I don't speak Russian. How am I supposed to watch this? Don't worry, because every episode of Alf Reality is dubbed to the point of absolute fucking hilarity.
And they should have just set up a one-on-one with one of Nate's team, the guy who clocked Zalek. Let them settle in one-on-one and that would have been it. None of this mess would have happened.
It took 6 episodes before season 1 of Tough descended into a night of booze-soaked chaos.
I'm an instigator.
Alf Reality speedran that record and only took 40 minutes to reach a level of pandemonium that would make Junie Browning feel inadequate. Alf had, for some fucking reason, hired Nate Diaz and living his absolute best life, John Jones, as this season's coaches. Midway through episode 1, a man named Zalek, desperate to be the Junie Browning of this series, tried to shove Nate. And when I say all hell breaks loose, this is like every in-house brawl on Tough across every season happening all at once and being dubbed into English in real time by only one voice actor.
American gangster, yes? I Russian gangster. You come and fighting. Yes? Daniel fighting Jackson.
Hey, take it easy.
It's enough.
Come on,
guys. Whoa, stop, enough. Get Zalek out of here. Get him out of here!
Whoa. No, don't do that.
That's it! Stop! That's enough! Wake him up!
Get him out! Just get him out!
Don't do it!
I told you! Just caught him!
Stop! Just calm down, man! Quit it! That's enough! That's enough! Stop! Get Zalek out of here! Don't let him in! Don't let him in! Stop the fighting, man! Calm down!
Gas chamber connoisseur Jake Shields gets a gang beatdown, which you always love to see, and true to form, Nate helps out not by joining the fight, but by throwing a bottle to try and distract Nikolai, Boris and Zangief from stomping Shields to death. This beating took a terrible toll on Shields' footwear.
I lost my fucking shoe.
I will remember you.
Nate and his black t-shirt crew leave the set, and the show attempts to restart. But before you can say vodka, there's another brawl, and this time someone's pulled a knife. If you thought all of this might deter John Jones from remaining on this rapidly unraveling shitshow, you are dead fucking wrong. Fully committed to living his absolute best life, Jones was later filmed blitzed out of his mind on the back of a motorbike, sniffing the hair of Zalek, the man who started the brawl with Nate.
Zalek уже взял свою команду Джонса. On my command, my team has global.
I'd also like to point out that while all this was happening, Tom Aspinall was still an interim champion, sidelined through no fault of his own and waiting for Jones to defend the title. All of this is Alf Reality in a nutshell, as coaches seem to be there mostly as targets and not teachers. On a later episode, Tony Ferguson was trying to demonstrate a move when the guy he was teaching just decided to go all out to try and submit him. And last year, Aljamain Sterling was choked unconscious by his own teammate who, you guessed it, just happened to be Zalek, the same guy who started the brawl with Nate and got an Indian head massage from Jones. Bullshit from around the world. In I Can't Believe We're Talking About This Shit Again news, Paige Van Zandt announced that she was dropping out of her Power Slap title match due to a severe neck injury. And I feel like maybe there's a pretty obvious solution to this problem that Paige is ignoring. Like, I'm no neckologist, but maybe if people didn't routinely slap you full force across the face without any means of defending yourself, you might not have a neck that has the range of motion of a 1980s action figure. On the 8th of June, UFC 316 arrived, and the UFC left millions on the table by not having a Stone Cold Steve Austin theme. I mean, the crossover was right there, but I mean, what the fuck do I know? After losing his title to Merab Dvalishvili in 2024, Sean O'Malley did literally nothing, earning himself a title shot in the process. In the history of the UFC, this is the first ever example of someone getting a title shot off the back of losing that very title in a fight where they were dominated for 5 rounds. But proving that he was taking this fight camp as seriously as possible, O'Malley gave up video games, weed, and jerking off for an entire year as part of his fight prep. I too tried the O'Malley path of self-discipline to see if it would make this video better, and it was the worst half hour of my life, and had no discernible effect on the quality of the final product. Leaving alpha bros everywhere in shambles, Dvalishvili proved that semen retention is the worst base for MMA. As he dominated O'Malley for a second time and even managed to finish the fight. A bold shake-up of game plan for a man with more decisions on his record than King Solomon. Sugar Sean reportedly went home, sparked up a joint, and played Stellar Blade with one hand. In the co-main of Austin 316, be-muscled femme colossus Kayla Harrison faced off against Juliana Pena for the women's bantamweight title. While it is true that if size alone won fights, Bob Sapp would be the greatest fighter of all time, Harrison's sheer volume of perfectly sculpted lady muscle was too much for the woefully overmatched Pena. After being lucky enough to get dominated for almost 2 rounds by a gender-swapped Ultimate Warrior, Pena was choked out in the 2nd round, and Kayla became the new bantamweight champion. Speaking of Kayla Harrison, my quest to have Senpai notice me took an interesting turn this year, when a member of my Discord asked me would I take a sponsorship from his non-profit organization called Martial Arts for Social Good. And while you'd have to be some kind of money-hungry ghoul to take sponsorship money from a non-profit that provides scholarships to disadvantaged children with the aim of training them to become world champion athletes in judo and BJJ, this person did claim to be a close friend of Kayla, and even produced proof. So the only payment I asked for in order to promote their organization was one small favor. Recognition of my existence in the form of a shout-out from Kayla herself. And ladies and gentlemen, you are not going to believe this, but Kayla did not give me a shout-out. She still flatly refuses to acknowledge my existence, I wonder why. Nevertheless, I sincerely hope Martial Arts for Social Good is a huge success, and maybe if you're feeling generous this Christmas, check out their website at martialartsforsocialgood.org. Welcome back, friends, to the 2025 Blowy Awards. Our next category is the George Dillman Award for Martial Arts Unbelievers. Legendary martial arts magician George Dillman once claimed that his no-touch knockout was only effective on people who believed in it.
The skeptic was a totally non-believer.
And at Fighting Nexus 39 in Tokyo, Yu Takeuchi proved that if you don't believe in jiu-jitsu, you can just breeze through a triangle attempt as if it were the soft arms of a lover's embrace. Yu Takeuchi, for your staunch disbelief in the efficacy of jiu-jitsu, you are the inaugural winner of the George Dillman Award for Disbelief in Martial Arts. Take a bow. Presidential hopeful Conor McGregor was spotted doing some canvassing of the electorate in an Ibiza nightclub. Taking Donald Trump's "I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and not lose a single vote" approach to politics, Conor attempted to see if knocking out a random punter in a nightclub might actually earn him some votes. The results were deemed inconclusive. After 7 months of edging, Jon Jones' incredible run at heavyweight finally came to an end with a half-hearted squirt, when he finally announced his retirement. Well, Jon didn't announce his retirement, it was actually Dana who announced it. Much like the shit-canning of the new UFC gloves, Dana approached the job of delivering the biggest MMA news story of 2025 with all the enthusiasm of Baron Harkonnen's proctologist. When asked by a journalist when we could expect to see Jones defend his title, this was Dana's response.
Jon Jones called us last night and retired. Jon Jones is officially retired. Tom Aspinall is the heavyweight champion of the UFC.
Thank you very much.
And that was that. After holding the title hostage and making the interim champion sit on the sidelines for 7 months while making every excuse imaginable not to fight him, the news of Jon Jones' retirement, the man who many people called the greatest fighter to ever set foot in the octagon and one of the last remaining superstars in MMA, was announced with all the fanfare of a cancer diagnosis at a press conference for a fight night card held in Azerbaijan at around 5 AM. This was the Four Seasons Total Landscaping Conference of MMA. After one of the most storied careers in UFC history, announcing Jones' retirement like this was like announcing the closure of Studio Ghibli in the end credits of Brian Callen's next stand-up special. Jon left the world of MMA because he was just living his absolute best life. His life is so much better than yours. Your words mean nothing to him, because Jones has achieved a nirvana-like level of bliss in his daily life, something a loser like you will never understand. He's content with all he has achieved. Everything is going great. Jon is living his absolute best life. He isn't sick within his own soul, a wife-beater masking an alcohol and drug dependency behind an ego that could block out the sun. He is just living his absolute best life. Mere days after Dana White casually tossed out the news that his heavyweight champion had retired, news broke that God, sometimes referred to as Allah or Yahweh, was wanted for questioning after Jones fled the scene of a drunken car crash, leaving a half-naked and intoxicated woman behind to take the fall. Biblical figure God has repeatedly given his toughest tests to Jones, who is sometimes referred to as his quote, strongest soldier. These tests have sometimes gone as far as placing cocaine, alcohol, and or gas station dick pills in the glove box of Jones's car to see how he will react. In one instance, God allegedly convinced Jones to beat his wife and headbutt a cop car. Jones' current record in these tests is 0 wins, 5 losses. If you see God, do not approach him. He is considered omnipotent and armed with the capacity to convince you to do blow and beat your spouse. In what was undoubtedly the single most bizarre story to break all year, Brian Johnson, aka the Liver King, inadvertently became the 251st comedy assassin when he was arrested after traveling to Texas with the intent to kill Joe Rogan. Allegedly.
Just pulling up. Guess what? You're dead, bitch.
Johnson had been very publicly spiraling for some time, with his posts becoming increasingly erratic.
Or anything and everything. Because Joe Rogan, we don't have to make videos to pretend anymore. All of this is happening. We're coming to you. I've challenged you man to man to a fight.
The focus of his deepening mania was on 2 people. The YouTuber known as Derek, More Plates, More Dates, and Joe Rogan, whom Johnson blamed for the fall-off of his social media empire. Liver King hatched an elaborate plan to drive his entire family and crew to Texas and essentially just free roam, calling out Joe until he magically appeared like some kind of Texan leprechaun.
Just pulling up. I haven't slept. I've been waiting to get here. Now we're here. Guess what? You're dead, bitch.
At this point, Liver King would fight and presumably eat Joe. Johnson's threats were taken seriously, however, and he was eventually arrested after people noticed that the present he had brought for Joe was a gun.
Come bearing a... See if I can... You want to see just a little...
I might watch that all. I wish if I can live stream, that's what we'll do from now on.
But really, if Liver King wanted to humiliate Joe, all he had to do was upload a reaction video to Joe's latest comedy special, Burn the Boats. I mean, have you seen this fucking thing? It's so bad that reacting to it spawned an entire cottage industry of YouTubers. You don't have to hatch an elaborate plan to kill Joe Rogan. You can just fire up Burn the Boats on Netflix and watch him very visibly die right in front of your eyes for 67 minutes straight. And if you really want to stick it in and break it off, just upload a reaction video to it and watch it get more views than Burn the Boats did. Congratulations, you've just killed Joe Rogan's comedy career. Former ONE, UFC and Triller Fight Club competitor Ben Askren was the recipient of a double lung transplant in June after battling a severe staph infection that nearly killed him. A stark reminder that in the midst of life we are in death, and that Askren was now likely only days away from Jake Paul calling him out for a rematch. Welcome friends to the 2025 Blowy Awards. Our next category is the Johnny Walker Award for Goofiest Ass Way to Injure Yourself 2, Electric Boogaloo. Yeah, we already did this one, but June saw a fighter named Ivan Parshikov injure himself in such a goofy ass way that it simply must be recognized. It may not exactly be shocking to find that a promotion named Weed Boxing did not adhere to the best standards and practices for fighter safety, but I'm not sure anyone could have envisioned just how comically inept this organization is. Electricity and water are a historically great combination, so much so that Weed Fight set up a boxing ring in the middle of a swimming pool and surrounded it with exposed live wires. The entire lighting rig surrounding the ring was electrified, and again I have to stress, this now fully electrified rig is sitting in the center of a fucking swimming pool. It's like these people have never played BioShock. As Ivan clambered out of the ring for a post-fight celebration, he steadied himself by grabbing onto the lighting rig and was immediately electrocuted.
Склонился в этом бою и не просто так Иван Паршиков. Ой-ой-ой, что это за шоу-тайм от Ивана, мы все...
Thankfully, Ivan avoided death, but only just, and as such, Ivan Parshikov, you are the second winner of the Johnny Walker Award for Goofiest Ass Way to Injure Yourself in 2025. Take a bow.
Oh, it's your loving and oh, it's your revenge. You and me can run a bad romance. Whoa.
As summer days of rustling shade returned once more, the biggest news on everyone's lips was the UFC White House card. Rumours had circled for some time, but Dana confirmed that a plan was in the works to host a private, Bloodsport-esque tournament for the enjoyment of a select few billionaires who wouldn't know a rear naked choke from the regular kind of naked choke they did on Epstein's Island. Among questions such as why and fucking why, people were asking who could possibly headline such a card. Despite retiring in disgrace only a few weeks prior, Jon Jones began a campaign to convince Dana that regardless of his indiscretions, he was the man to headline the biggest card the UFC would ever stage. Dana is a lot of things. A wife slapper, a cardio kickboxing instructor, a man whose own mother dislikes him to the point of writing a tell-all biography of her own son. But one thing he isn't is fucking stupid. Dana said, I just can't risk putting him in big positions in a big spot and have something go wrong, especially with the White House card. In a moment that likely brought on ego disintegration for Jon, Dana followed it up by saying, I trust Conor. Conor has always delivered. Jon, I'm a little more skeptical about. And really think about that for a second. Dana just said that he trusts Conor McGregor more than he trusts you. The man who once chartered a private jet full of thugs to go assault a bus full of UFC fighters, punched an old man for no reason, was arrested for smashing a fan's phone, assaulted a TV presenter in a nightclub, hospitalized the Miami Heat mascot, has ties to one of the biggest crime families in Europe, has multiple accusations of sexual assault and is an adjudicated rapist. If this man is deemed more reliable than you may want to reconsider changing literally fucking everything about yourself and your way of life. In the same month that Dana said Conor is more trustworthy than you, Conor took his clothes off, attached a dumbbell to his penis, took a photograph of it, and completely unsolicited sent it to a mentally unwell woman who has a massive social media following and a pathologic hatred of the Irish, and Dana still thinks he is more trustworthy than you.
Is he fucking awesome?
Remember the John Wick Invitational I mentioned earlier, and how it would have been the best grappling event of the year, if not for another, even more comical grappling promotion? Well, let me introduce you to that even more comical promotion. Ultimate Tire Wrestling. The goal of Ultimate Tire Wrestling is to dunk your opponent into a stack of tires by any means necessary.
It's gonna be dunked.
Fully dumped him.
Oh, it's close. It's close. Oh, it's dunked.
And this is a concept so gloriously stupid, I think I may have genuinely enjoyed this more than any non-Shevchenko pay-per-view this year.
It's folded in. It's all over. It's almost there. Oh my God, it's over. Yes. Wow. Malik dunked.
July's pay-per-view was UFC 318. And the big selling point of this card was that in the main event, we would see not only Dustin Poirier's retirement fight, but he would be challenging Max Holloway for the gimmick weight championship of the world, the BMF belt. Poirier is one of the best fighters in the UFC to never hold a title. For most of his career, he was in a weird limbo of being too good to be a gatekeeper, but not quite good enough to be a title holder either. So setting him up with a chance to win an imaginary title in his retirement fight kind of felt like a consolation prize. But there are no fairy tale endings in MMA. And Dustin had to settle for retiring on a loss after a decision win was awarded to Max. Such a high-profile main event and high-profile retirement really deserved to be the capstone of a far better card, as the UFC really were banking on Dustin's retirement fight to sell what was possibly the worst card of 2025. The rest of the fights on this pay-per-view would have struggled to fill the bathroom of the Apex Center. The UFC had been quarter-assing their cards all year, with not a single card being the kind of 5-fight banger UFC 300 was in 2024. And I realise not every card can be UFC 300, but 318 was peak MMA slop. Brendan the Broken Clock Schaub made headlines this month with comments he made about Renato Moicano. Moicano had turned down a $250,000 payout from the UFC antitrust lawsuit, ostensibly in the hopes that by not taking the money, Dana will see him as a good company man and take care of him later on. But believing Dana cares about you is like believing the stripper really likes you. The last fighter Dana cared about was probably Chuck Liddell.
He thinks that he's showing loyalty to the fucking man by not taking this money that he's earned. That's how brainwashed a lot of these fighters are. Every single one of you are underpaid. Hey, Moicano, let me ask you a quick question. When the UFC, and they're going to get it, when the UFC signs $1 billion TV right deals, when they sign a billion, not a million, not 100 million, $1 billion deal, I want you to ask your agent or manager how much of a percentage you're getting of that $1 billion deal. Now, if you don't want to ask them, I'll do you a fucking solid right now and tell you how much you're going to get. 0. You're going to receive 0 of the dollar, sir.
Welcome, friends, to the Blowy Awards for 2025. The next category is I can't believe it, but Brendan Schaub actually said something bordering on smart, and now I'm questioning everything I know about the World Award. Mr. Schaub, this award is for you. You're absolutely right in everything you said about Moicano and the antitrust suit, and the only saving grace in all of this is that we have actually found someone dumber than you in Renato Moicano. Take a bow. Former Pride legend Vanderlei Silva, a man who has previously stated that he is showing multiple symptoms of CTE, announced in July that he was attempting to finish the job that CTE had started by signing up for a boxing match with steroid enjoyer Victor Belfort. In an effort to ensure that he spends the remainder of his life not being able to count higher than the number 5, Vanderlei also announced that there was a bonus on offer to whoever can land a knockout, all of which makes me think the organisers of Spaten Fight Night should be investigated for elder abuse. The rumoured White House card was attracting more drunks and rapists than a Siberian gulag, as not only was John Jones campaigning for a slot on the card, but now presidential hopeful Conor McGregor was trying to punch his ticket to the White House. Conor McGregor claims he's back in UFC drug testing pool. I am ecstatic. You know what, look, they got this headline all screwed up. What it's supposed to say is, Conor McGregor claims he's on ecstasy in a pool full of drugs. And it wouldn't be an end-of-year wrap-up without at least one fighter losing a fight due to vomiting.
A la madre. Vomitó. Vomitó. Sí. Dele, ver.
Welcome, friends, to the 2025 Blowy Awards. Our next category is the Steve Mazzagatti Award for Outstanding Excellence in Terrible Refereeing. At UFC Abu Dhabi, Stephen Wynn beat a man named Mohamed Yahya into a living death, while referee Jason Herzog looked on disinterestedly. Wynn quite literally put a record-breaking hiding on Yahya, scoring 6 knockdowns in a single round, which set a new record and had people wondering if maybe the rules around how many knockdowns per round before a fight is stopped should be drastically pared down. Not only had Yahya suffered more knockdowns than the average bowling pin, he appeared to have a broken orbital bone as his eye had swelled to gruesome new dimensions. Thankfully, none of this seemed to even remotely disturb alleged referee Jason Herzog. Herzog allowed this one-sided punishment beating to continue in the hopes that the visual aid of seeing a man pummeled to death might help him maintain an erection for longer than the average Napalm Death song. Which was great for me because I and several others had put money on this fight going past round 1. Thanks again, Jason. You made a few of us richer and ensured Mohamed Yahya will need a full-time caretaker by the age of 50. Take a bow.
Tonight we gotta cut loose, put loose, kick off the Sunday shoes, oh my goodness.
Speculation ran wild all year about what would happen when the UFC's current deal with ESPN ran out. Was it going to move to Netflix and abandon the pay-per-view model entirely? Was it going to move to Disney Plus and create a whole bunch of terrible spin-offs that retroactively ruin your enjoyment of the original? On the 11th of August, Dana announced that the UFC would be exclusively moving to Paramount Plus, where it would sit alongside such classic programming as the Halo TV show, as part of a $7.7 billion deal. But don't worry, that money is absolutely going right back into the fighters' pockets. As TKO COO Mark Shapiro said, "When we do deals like this, we don't hoard that money, we invest it in the product." This essentially did away with the pay-per-view model, as the UFC would now be included as part of a Paramount Plus subscription, in a move that affects the only market the UFC cares about, America. Well, that's not entirely true, they do also seem to care deeply about Saudi Arabia. Fun fact, Saudi Arabia executed 2 people this year for crimes of witchcraft and sorcery. UFC 319 arrived and continued the UFC's white-hot streak of disappointing title fights. The main event for this one was a long-awaited title shot for Khamzat Chimaev versus reigning middleweight champion Dricus du Plessis. Chimaev's game plan was 5 rounds of humping du Plessis like a poodle's pillow. And it worked, as Chimaev dominated Dricus for 5 rounds, but it wasn't particularly entertaining from a spectator standpoint. Disappointment had been simmering among fans all year, but this fight was the boiling point for many. From UFC 311 in January to 319 in August, only 3 main events had ended with a finish, and of those 3, one was Makhachev vs Moicano, a fight that was about as foregone a conclusion as what next month will be. After winning the title, Khamzat flew back to Chechnya, where he prostrated himself at the feet of Chechen warlord Ramzan Kadyrov. Kadyrov relinquished him of his belt and then posed for photos as if it were he who had spent 25 minutes grinding all up on DDP. At time of writing, he has yet to give it back.
Now give it back. Give what back?
So I guess congratulations are in order to new middleweight champion Ramzan Kadyrov. You have proved without doubt that being an out-of-shape piece of human detritus who has to pay tough guys to hang out with him in order to feel like a real man while enacting sweeping, brutal repression of public freedoms and basic human rights is the best base for MMA. Remember Luke Rockhold? Remember how despite losing his retirement fight, he still had a near-perfect send-off by taking part in one of the bloodiest, grittiest fights in recent memory, and then came back and got the shit beat out of him in BKFC? Well, Luke is back. Again. August of 2025 saw Rockhold set to face Darren Till in a boxing match. Till had crashed out of MMA after going 1-5 in 6 fights and is now making the rounds of influencer boxing. We last saw Till in our 2024 end-of-year wrap-up, when he fought a man dressed as a gorilla driving a remote-control car. Rockhold accused Till of not taking the fight seriously, claiming that while he was in the gym, Till was, quote, fucking off in Ibiza. Fucking off in Ibiza is apparently the best base for boxing, however, as Till obliterated Rockhold with one of the nastiest knockouts of the year. Welcome, friends, to the 2025 Blowy Awards. Our next award is in the category of most unintentionally homoerotic trash talk. MMA is famous for its subtle homoerotic undertones, but when it comes to trash talk, these undertones can sometimes become overtones.
Take care of your underwears, I'm gonna you, man.
And 2025 was no exception to this rule. After his fight with Darren Till, Luke Rockhold went on the Ariel Helwani show and detailed an altercation he had with Dylan Dennis just prior to the fight. But Luke, world famous for a style of trash talk in which you can very visibly see his brain fruitlessly attempt to catch up with his mouth, also revealed some more intimate details of his relationship with Dylan.
With 2 hands behind my back, I would fuck that kid in the ass.
Fuck, oh god, that's a whole different type of fight, jeez.
I mean, I guess that's pretty impressive. With both hands behind your back and hitting that bullseye right in the Swiss roll? That's like Luke Skywalker turning off his targeting computer and still landing one right up the Death Star's exhaust port. I don't know whether this was supposed to be intimidation or invitation, but either way, you, Luke Rockhold, are the inaugural winner of the Blowy Award for most unintentionally homoerotic trash talk. Take a bow. Longtime fans of MMA will fondly recall the days when Tony Ferguson was the man.
I'm a fucking turtle. Ninja Turtle. So which one's your favorite? I like Michelangelo.
The days when the most hyped fight the UFC could arrange was Tony v Khabib, when both men were arguably the greatest fighters on the planet. For a brief window of time, Tony Ferguson was unstoppable. Until he wasn't. Tony's career fall-off may be the single most drastic in MMA history, and I mean that without any hyperbole. from riding a damn near unprecedented 12-fight win streak in 2019 to turning it into an 8-fight losing streak by 2024. At times, it feels like the world has truly gone to shit since 2020, and Tony's career downfall mirrored that of the spiraling global shitshow. As COVID crept into every facet of our lives, Tony lost his first fight in 6 years. As wars both physical and cultural sprang up around the globe, Tony lost another fight, and another, and another. Wars, pandemic, genocide, this decade has played host to all of the worst of human proclivities, and through it all, Tony Ferguson has continued to lose. It's why only the most optimistic among us even dared to get our hopes up when Tony announced that he was fighting an influencer named Salt Pappy on a Misfits boxing card. Losing to a Fortnite streamer on a meme card seemed like the logical endpoint for Tony's undefeated losing streak. But then something weird happened. Tony won. Look, no disrespect to Salt Pappy, he's one of the few influencer boxers who appears to be taking this seriously and is a pretty decent boxer, but this wasn't exactly Ali versus Foreman. It was an influencer versus a guy who hasn't won a fight in half a decade. But none of that matters, because Tony won. For now, the losing streak is over, and if Tony can break what seemed like an indestructible losing streak, maybe there's hope for us all. Angela Hill had a wardrobe malfunction during her weigh-in for a UFC on ESPN card, when she remembered just a second too late that she wasn't going to make the 115-pound weight limit unless she removed the extra 2 pounds of tit she was smuggling in her bra. The moment was made even better when Hill handed her fake breasts to the guy doing the weigh-ins, and he accidentally slapped one of them across the room.
116 pounds for the number 12 ranked Angela Overkill Hill.
And as August ended, a man named Norman Walker found out the hard way that the only person who is qualified to do Max Holloway's signature point at the canvas move is Max Holloway.
Great work by Norman, then a good job by Walker to find his way out of the back there.
Ooh, stones him. He is over on his feet. Holy cow! Just like that, Byron Walker.
As summer faded, TKO Boxing held their first ever event. The fight would be broadcast live over Netflix and was sponsored by a country whose government executes people for having magic powers. With all the weight of Saudi oil money to prop them up, TKO managed to shell out a few $100 million to make Canelo vs Crawford the main event for their debut card. As part of the fight's promotion, Dana found out the hard way that while he can stuff UFC press conferences with yes-men reporters lobbing softball questions at him, he does not have that same level of control over the world of boxing.
So my question to you is, why then do you want to make sweeping changes to the Muhammad Ali Reform Act that is meant to protect fighters to bring about a business model that currently has your company already paid out $375 million in antitrust lawsuits and has 2 potential pending class action lawsuits on the way as well?
Well, this is obviously a long discussion. If you want to talk to me about that, set up an interview. This isn't about me and my business. It's about these 2 guys on Saturday night.
My follow-up, Dana. Earlier this week, the California State Athletic Commission had a hearing about TKO trying to bring those changes to the Ali Act, and it was postponed 3 months.
Listen, I get it. You want to showboat right now. Set up an interview with me if this is really what you want to talk about.
It's America, baby.
If you have questions for these 2, ask them and you can set up an interview with me.
Dana, my follow-up is, if TKO can't make those changes to the Ali Act, will you still invest in the sport of boxing? Will you compete in the market?
Listen, if you want to be an asshole, let's do it in private and we can do an interview.
Yes or no?
If you want to showboat, I get it.
And I'm sure that interview will be happening any day now. September also meant it was time to remember gay Jesus, as Yoel Romero returned to the world of combat sports. Romero, 48 years old yet sporting the body of a 25-year-old steroid abuser, made his bare-knuckle debut and scored a brutal second-round knockout.
And here's that left uppercut. That was a beautiful shot. He sees openings.
Look, I'm not saying Yoel is on steroids though, but what I am saying is that anybody who is 48 years old and looks like this is absolutely on steroids. Shocking news from the world of politics as non-consensual sex enjoyer Conor McGregor announced he was dropping out of a race he had never even laced up his shoes for. Following careful reflection and after consulting with my family, I am withdrawing my candidacy from this presidential race, Conor said. As the day arrived when politicians were expected to actually start canvassing for nominations, Conor came to a stark realization. Firstly, getting elected would require more effort than just logging onto Twitter, and secondly, his chances of being even nominated were lower than his own morals. And I'm pretty sure somebody made a video saying all this would happen back in like May? Can't remember who it was though, but yeah, shout out to that guy. With his political career behind him,
this is where my political career starts.
McGregor refocused on what was important to him, sandblasting his septum and announcing fights with Michael Chandler that are less likely to materialize than the risen Christ. Welcome friends to the 2025 Blowy Awards. This next award is... okay, look, fuck it, it's another Johnny Walker award, but I guarantee this one is also worthy of an award because I've never seen an injury like this happen in my entire life. At a Cage Fury BJJ event in Philadelphia, a woman named Amanda Mazza scored one of the most memorable submissions of the year when she submitted herself. In the strain of applying a rear naked choke to her opponent, Mazza snapped her own arm like a dry twig.
Squeeze on there. You see Hansen reaching back, trying to create some space. Oh, what happened? She said I did tap. I didn't tap. Did she go out? Oh, is it the hair?
Is it her arm? Because Mazza's holding her arm.
Mazza's opponent, Emily Hansen, had clearly been training some kind of backy-ass shit in order to be able to break arms with her neck. Meaning, I'm not entirely sure who to give this award to. Amanda Mazza, for your willingness to sacrifice your own limbs, and Emily Hansen, for your iron neck. You are joint winners of the third Johnny Walker Award to feature in this video. Take a bow. September was the lone month of the year in which there was no UFC pay-per-view, so by way of apology, the UFC graced the shores of Europe to deliver unto us UFC Paris. The Paris card was honestly one of the better cards of the year, with 4 out of the 6 main card fights ending in a finish. But it was a fight on the prelims that really stood out, as a fighter named Cao Fernandez scored the only recorded leg kick TKO this year. Fernandez's naked contempt for legs saw him relentlessly assault his opponent Harry Hardwick's lower limbs to the point that not only was he unable to continue, he had to be taken out of the arena in a wheelchair. With no numbered UFC pay-per-view to speak of, let's fill that void by watching influencers challenge professional fighters with laughably predictable results. In a little segment that I like to call Influencers Challenging Professional Fighters with Laughably Predictable Results. Influencers challenging professional fighters with laughably predictable results. Israel Adesanya delivered a liver shot to fitness influencer Sam McCarthy, and to his credit, Sam takes this shot like an absolute champ. Desperately clinging to the "it's just a prank bro" style of content, a man named I'm Red TV got hip-tossed by Kayla Harrison in a clip where the acting is less believable than the average porno.
I'm just trying to give you pointers, sweetheart, that's it.
You want to bow to your sensei real quick?
What's that?
What's up, audience? Oh! It's a prank, man. I'm just playing. It's a prank. It's a prank. It's a fucking prank. Look at the camera. Hey! Fuck!
Thankfully, Sean Strickland conserved all his energy from his title fight with DDP so he could expend it in the real money fight, going full blast on a YouTuber named Nick Nair Cena. And having seen this man's videos, I don't think Sean went far enough. Islam Makhachev put Aiden Ross in a twister.
Now I want to hug you. That is crazy. What's the pain? The pain's pretty hard because I feel my neck. I just want to hug you.
If you want to see a dead body, Pride and UFC veteran Antonio Rogerio Nogueira has you covered. Nogueira may have actually killed a man when he fought a fitness influencer named Tadala Fellas.
Aposta aí as suas energias em cima do Minotouro. Minotouro bateu e botou na lona. Está!
Nogueira wasn't done, however, as he declared war on streamers everywhere in 2025, and in November knocked out another influencer named Ray Physique. Tom Aspinall lived the dream of any right-minded person and kicked the shit out of internet comedians, the Sidemen.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And to end this segment, Vanessa Demopoulos woman-handled iShow Speed.
Oh, what the fuck? What the fuck?
Fuck off! Get off! Stop! What the fuck?
Influencers challenging professional fighters with laughably predictable results. Remember the announcement that Vanderlei Silva was going to fight Victor Belfort? Well, the good news is Victor pulled out of that fight. The bad news is they found a replacement, a former world champion boxer named Acelino Popo Freitas. Over the course of 4 rounds, Popo outboxed Vanderlei with ease. He had better footwork and head movement and was faster and more accurate than Silva. What Silva lacked in boxing skills, he made up for with a lifetime of vale tudo. Utilizing his head to an impressive degree, Vanderlei repeatedly headbutted Popo. After receiving a 3rd point deduction for headbutting, the fight was ruled a disqualification win for Popo, and that's when the real fight started. The ring almost immediately descended into a Royal Rumble-esque free-for-all as both Vanderlei and Popo's crews threw down. Even former UFC heavyweight champion Fabricio Verdum was in there throwing hands. But it was a random guy in a tuxedo who threw the most impressive shot of the night, laying Silva out cold with just 1 punch. This event also happened to coincide with the 20th anniversary of Pride Shockwave 2005, an event where Vanderlei was knocked out cold backstage by felony Charles Bennett. So I guess happy anniversary Vanderlei, it's nice to see the old traditions being kept alive. Post-brawl, Vanderlei was looking to press charges for attempted murder on the Tuxedo Man, who, it turned out, was Popo's son. But in one of the most bizarre moments you'll see all year, a truce was negotiated between Popo and Vanderlei by Burger King. Burger King convinced both men to take part in an advert that sees Popo place a paper crown on Vanderlei, while Vanderlei jokes about using your head. Both men apparently got paid more for this advert than for their entire fight, so I guess it all worked out in the end.
It's got me really fired up.
She hit the floor. Next thing you know, she'll get low.
As the long autumn nights drew in, it was once again time to check in with our good friends at the GFL. Because despite being a very obvious, for want of a better word, scam, the GFL were still trying to convince anyone willing to listen that they were just going through a bit of a rough patch and would absolutely, definitely be back on track for 2026. The official GFL Twitter account posted, "To the athletes, fans and partners, thank you for your patience and support. We've been hard at work and look forward to sharing what's next." And look, maybe it's just me, but when most of your athletes were imaginary and the sum total of your content library amounts to one shitty AI video, I don't think you get to qualify as having either athletes or fans. Former UFC fighter Uriah Faber explained how the GFL had managed to convince so many people to buy into its dream of spaceship-based ant fighting. GFL CEO Darren Owen had, allegedly, taken a screenshot of his bank account with $30 million in it to prove that he had the funding for GFL, and once people had signed up, that $30 million was transferred elsewhere, leaving Owen with nothing but an impressive screenshot to pay his fighters with.
That money was just resting in my account before I moved it on.
Former UFC fighter Kevin Lee had even gone so far as to sue the GFL for extortion and fraud. But don't worry, 2026 will absolutely be the GFL's year. Maybe all they need is just a better AI-generated advert to really sell the vision. Like, just really lean into this whole giant ant thing.
My sanity, clarity, both teetering on the brink. I'm scaring me, apparently I'm bleeding black ink.
His palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy. There's vomit on his sweater already. Mom's spaghetti, he's nervous, but on the surface he looks calm and ready to drop mom's spaghetti.
Protect your neck,
spaghetti,
cause you come next.
Spaghetti,
you ought to know best, this ain't no check.
I would like to profusely apologize for using AI video in order to clown on AI video. It is the one and only time I'll ever use it, and I'd just like to take this opportunity to highlight the actual real artists I have worked with this year on videos or t-shirt designs. If you ever need artwork, please give your money to actual human artists like these, and not soulless AI slop. October also saw the release of the long-awaited Mark Kerr biopic, The Smashing Machine, starring Wayne Roxon. And at the risk of turning this into a movie review, I'm about to review this movie because I have opinions that need to be expressed. The first and most important thing I'd like to say about this movie is that I hope Mark Kerr got fucking paid. I hope he earned more than that time he fought Jeff Monson, because apparently no one got paid in that match.
Watch me fuck Mark Kerr for free.
I hope Kerr earned enough royalties off this to keep he and his family set for life. Because he deserves it, and God knows the money from his fighting career isn't doing it. I hope they make more sequels to this than there are for Five Nights at Freddy's, and Mark Kerr makes bank for every single one. Having said all that, I do think it was impressive work on the part of director Benny Safdie to make a movie about a painkiller-addicted, steroid-guzzling, no-holds-barred fighter taking part in the biggest heavyweight tournament of all time while juggling his career, addiction, and an explosive personal relationship, and still make it feel like literally nothing happens for 2 hours. Also, I'm sorry, but every time I see the 56-year-old John Rock in his weird facial prosthetics and wig, all I can see is when someone draws a face on their chin and films it upside down. I get that maybe they needed the star power of Rock Wainson to sell this thing, because otherwise they were relying on the unholy acting talents of Ryan Bader, but this is some of the worst casting I can think of outside of an Al Jolson video. Rock Dwayneson is about as convincing as a 29-year-old as Freddie Mercury was as a heterosexual. The Smashing Machine is a fairly weak reimagining of a far superior documentary, but again, oh fuck it, Mark Kerr got paid for this and maybe even got a new generation of fans, so I'm glad it exists. It's not a bad movie, it's just not a particularly interesting one either, and its story was told far better in the original documentary. I for one am eagerly awaiting Safdie's true passion project, The Fucking Machine, the Jeff Monson story, starring Jonah Hill as Jeff Monson. While UFC pay-per-views had struggled in 2025, there were still moments of greatness to remind us why we loved this sport in the first place. Jiri Prochazka is a bearded treasure, a fan favourite who has earned that place in our hearts not through trash talking or cultivating a fake persona, but simply by being himself. Because Jiri's self is so deeply strange, it's impossible not to love this man.
Let's go for that.
After his naked bongo session in Ryzen, wombat-loving weeaboo street samurai Jiri fought Khalil Roundtree at UFC 320. Only Jiri kind of forgot he was actually in a professional fistfight and let Roundtree stunt on him for 2 rounds. It looked like Roundtree was about to cruise to a decision win, until Jiri remembered that the point of being in a professional fistfight is to win, and thus he decided to win.
Prochazka's face. Oh, beautiful. That'll do it.
Prochazka vs Roundtree is one of the fights of the year. But the strangeness didn't end there, as post-fight, Jiri was spotted weeping tears of pure joy while watching Alex Pereira flatline Magomed Ankalaev in the main event. At a Polish MMA promotion called Babylon MMA, we bore witness to the fastest ever tap-out in recorded history. In what may be the only ever example of submission via opening bell, a fighter named Marcin Stolczyk tapped out 1 second into round 1.
To może być krótki pojedynek.
In other bizarro Euro MMA news, nothing screams professional fighting like fat guys in jeans. And nobody does fat guys in jeans MMA quite like real extreme fighting from Bucharest. Perhaps there's a shortage of sportswear in Eastern Europe, though I find that hard to believe. But either way, 2 fat dudes in jeans and sneakers took part in some kind of bare-knuckle kickboxing event, and the most memorable part of this was not the knockout, but the fact that the referee had to perform a belly-to-back suplex on the winner to pull him off his opponent.
Cred că e gata meciul. Nu reușește Iani decât printr-un suplex să-l dea la o parte pe...
After failing his most recent test, God turned his attention from John Jones to focus on more pressing matters, turning a blind eye to the genocides in Sudan, Palestine, and numerous full-scale wars. God instead turned his attention to an altogether more important task: saving the cocaine-encrusted soul of Conor McGregor.
I live my life by God's word. I've engaged on a spiritual journey, and I'm saved, I am healed.
It's unclear as to why biblical character God seems so invested in washed-up MMA fighters, but after a weekend of tripping balls in a Mexican ayahuasca retreat, God revealed himself to Conor, slapped the bag out of his hand, and told him to sort his fucking life out. October played host to a second pay-per-view, and on the 25th, UFC 321 arrived, and we were treated to Tom Aspinall's long-awaited return to the octagon. This was Aspinall's first fight after 15 months of watching from a crack in the closet doors while John Jones fucked the heavyweight title. Exploiting the infinite title shot glitch was his opponent and fellow Frenchman, Cyril Gane. UFC 321 was, shockingly, not a good card. Of 5 fights, 4 went to a decision, and 3 of those fights were barely worthy of being on a prelim. I have been a little hard on the UFC this year, and while a lot of the blame for UFC 321 being a bigger time waster than a cryonic chamber can be placed at the feet of the UFC's matchmakers for putting together such a nothing-ass card, the real reason this card is remembered about as fondly as the collected works of Jimmy Savile was thanks to Cyril Gane and his love of eye pokes. Late in round 1, Aspinall's return to the UFC was cut drastically short when Gane attempted to finger-bang Tom's eye sockets as if his skull were a bowling ball.
To fight the
best heavyweights in the world. Watch your fingers.
After 15 months of inactivity, and 7 of those spent watching Jones wipe his ass with the heavyweight title, to have the first unified heavyweight title fight since November of 2024 end like this was undoubtedly the single lowest point the UFC would dredge this year. Eye pokes have been a huge problem this year, and one that, at time of writing, the UFC has still done nothing to address. In the UFC Paris main event, Caio Borralho was eye-poked multiple times by Nassourdine Imavov. Jesus fucking Christ, these names. Nassourdine Imavov. Bilal Muhammad would be repeatedly eye-poked by Ian Zavirax Gary. Henry Cejudo suffered a fight-ending eye-poke by Song Yadong. Hell, eye-pokes were so en vogue in 2025 that people were finding new and interesting ways to do them, like this fighter who eye-poked with his toe.
You have to be a real good sharpshooter to be, I'm going to give him a toe in the eye today to get a W here.
Right.
That was definitely a boot to the face intent.
Oh, yeah.
A little miscalculations. What a bummer.
Sadly, there is no way to stop this. There are no rules that referees could enforce to try and discourage fighters from throwing hands like they were posing for a 2000s nu metal photo shoot, and there are no gloves you could wear that might actually mitigate this problem either. All we can do is literally nothing, and hope that somehow everything just fixes itself. Welcome friends to the 2025 Blowy Awards. Our next award is in that least coveted category, the Keith Hackney Award for Low Blow of the Year. The low blow is the most underrated weapon in a fighter's arsenal when it comes to ending a fight as quickly as possible. You may not be declared the winner, but landing a swift kick in the balls, or even the mythical elbow to anus, will absolutely guarantee you'll get to clock out early that night. At UFC Fight Night 259 in September, Cedric Dumas suffered a shot to the groin so bad he had to be stretchered out of the arena.
Take your time.
The PFL proved that anything the UFC can do, they can also do, but worse, as Alexander Romanov received a heavyweight knee to the groin that briefly lifted him off the ground, and ensured he too would need to be stretchered out of the arena. But it was UFC Vancouver in October that provided more tortured dicks than a fetish club. Kevin Holland received 2 dick kicks in the space of a minute. To add insult to injury, rather than penalise his opponent Mike Malott for administering the low blow, referee Dan Mergliotta gave Holland a warning for, I guess, having a dick. But UFC Vancouver wasn't done with its generational run of emasculation, as Kyle Prepelec had his gonads forcibly inserted into his abdomen by the foot of Drew Dober.
Let me know if there's anything I can do for you. Take all the time you need, okay?
Drew Dober, for your unwavering commitment to ensure that Prepelec never reproduces, you are the 2025 winner of the Keith Hackney Award for Low Blow of the Year. Take a bow. Before we get to November's entry, I know that for a lot of you, watching my year-end wrap-up videos has become a tradition of sorts, and it makes me feel genuinely happy and grateful of the community that we have here to think that for some of you, a portion of your holiday tradition, no matter how small, can come from something that I made. Over the last few years, one of my traditions has revolved around the Ryzen New Year's Eve card. JMMA and New Year's Eve is a combo that goes back decades at this point, from the time Inoki Bombaye poached Crow Cop away from Pride to take part in their New Year's Eve show, to Minowa Man winning the final of the Super Hulk tournament, to the greatest freak show fight in living memory, Gabby Garcia vs Yumiko Hotta. All these events took place in Japan on New Year's Eve. And for the last few years, I've spent my New Year's Eve watching the Ryzen New Year's Eve card, to the point now where watching some men and women beat the shit out of each other as the clock strikes 12 is an oddly comforting way to spend the night. The New Year's card isn't just another card, but something I genuinely look forward to every year. Which is why I quietly shit myself when I received this message from Ryzen's official Instagram account a couple of weeks ago. Having Ryzen's PR ask me would I like to promote their show is the equivalent of Valentina asking me out on a date. You don't even have to ask. I'm already at the restaurant and I've ordered for both of us because that's a power move. Your boy has finally made it. Senpai has officially noticed me. In an effort to top the Man Festival as the greatest name for a card imaginable, this New Year's Eve, Ryzen hosts the year-end Super Powerhouse Festival, and I invite you to join me in my year-end tradition by spending a not inconsiderable amount of time this December 31st immersed in some quality JMMA. You can stream the Super Powerhouse Festival over on Ryzen.tv, and it costs roughly the same price as a cup of coffee and a sandwich, and should you choose to do so, I sincerely hope you enjoy what looks to be a great night of fights and join me in my yearly New Year's Eve tradition. As winter returned and the nights grew colder and shorter, it was still high summer in the well of Dana's bosom, and on every blazing hot day, the breeze seemed to whisper the name Zuckerberg. Defending billionaire Zuckerberg from anonymous haters on the internet, Dana explained how everyone who doesn't like Mark is a hot-pocket guzzling amorphous blob of fat, and Zuckerberg is a totally legit badass who is so badass that he'll kick your ass. Badly. All you telephone tough guys and internet tough guys that talk shit about Mark Zuckerberg. Zuckerberg will beat the shit out of every one of you, Dana said while squeezing his Zuckerberg body pillow. Ignoring whatever the fuck a telephone tough guy is, I'm not even an internet tough guy. I'm more of an internet alpha pussy. But with both hands tied behind my back, I would still November was a big news month as a fighter named Isaac Dulgarian was released from the UFC roster as part of a fixed fighting investigation. Gambling has crept into every single facet of the UFC in recent years. You can't go 5 minutes into any given card without seeing John Anik pop up like a gambling genie to tell you all the fastest ways possible to blow this week's paycheck. There's entire gambling segments with this fucking creature and live odds on screen during the fights. At times it can feel like all these fights are actually just getting in the way of a really good gambling show. So it's no surprise that when everything in the UFC is gambling and all your fighters are being paid less than minimum wage, that some of them try to game their own fights. Dulgarian was fighting on the prelims of an Apex card that no one was watching, yet somehow his fight had racked up $16 million in bets. And guys, I'm gonna give you a tip here, but no one cares enough about an Apex prelim to put $16 on one of them, never mind 16 million. This is like putting 16 million on some kids playing tag. If you're going to try and rig a fight to gamble on, at least try and make it look believable. Speaking of scams, November saw Khabib Nurmagomedov in the headlines once again, as people couldn't help but notice that the devoutly religious Khabib seemed to have no problem whatsoever flogging any and every crypto scheme that comes across his desk. Khabib and crypto isn't anything new, as Khabib Nurmagomedov had been shilling NFTs as far back as 2021, and even endorsed a meme coin called Convict that was based on McGregor's rape case. But his most recent NFT drop in November was more suspicious than Pat Barry in a teenager's DMs, as Nurmagomedov had earned over $4 million in 24 hours by selling digital hats like this was Team Fortress 2. Things got sketchy once the money was raised and people began to complain about this very obvious bullshit JPEG selling racket. Khabib and fellow hat salesman and owner of Telegram, Pavel Durov, quietly attempted to scrub all traces of his digital hat shop from the web. While technically not a scam, as people got exactly what they paid for, $4 million worth of hat JPEGs, selling this as some grand gesture passed down to him by his father, as if Abdulmanap had given him the password to his crypto wallet on his deathbed, was genuinely scummy. And you know what, Habib? Ireland may not have fighters, but at least our highest profile celebrity sports stars aren't crypto shilling scumbags. Our celebrity sports stars are just good old fashioned rapists. John Jones was back in the news in November as he sought a face-to-face meeting with Dana to sincerely apologise to him for how he spent the majority of the year pissing on the heavyweight title as if he were a bootleg Calvin sticker. This contrite version of Jones exists not because he had some great revelation about how he lived his life and was looking to make amends, but solely to try and curry favour so he could get his name on the White House card. And I don't know about you, but I for one am a petty bitch, and seeing John's bullshit finally bite him in the ass to the point where it disqualified him from the highest profile card the UFC will ever stage, and seeing him quite literally begging and scraping in a desperate and so far fruitless attempt to get his name on that card. Oh, it's so good. Possibly the biggest news to come out of November, however, came from the world of influencer boxing. After a career spent fighting washed-up MMA fighters and 60-year-old Mike Tyson, Jake Paul finally seemed to take criticism of his choice in opponents to heart when he signed on to fight Anthony Joshua. This is unusual for several reasons. Firstly, Joshua is only 36, meaning he's a full 25 years younger than Jake's last opponent, and still just about in his prime. Secondly, Joshua isn't washed up or an MMA fighter, and thirdly, he's a professional boxer. These are all traits that Jake has gone out of his way to avoid in opponents, so to go from the skid row of bums that he's been fighting in recent years to fighting AJ is some severe tonal whiplash. Jake essentially increased the difficulty on his career from I'm too young to die to nightmare without trying anything in between. The big pay-per-view of the month was UFC 322, Della Macarena vs Makhachev. Islam Makhachev had moved up to welterweight in order to challenge Walla Walla Bing Bang, and the best part of this entire pay-per-view was when Dylan Dennis got into an unsanctioned fight with a guy named John Pork, at least I think that's his name. Thankfully, Sean O'Malley was on hand to document this entire fight, providing a play-by-play commentary for a brawl that was probably more entertaining than the main event.
Saying, get the fuck out of here. Oh my god, they're still going. Green Naked choke for security. Oh, still in data. Of course he's in a fight. It's still in data. What the fuck is that shoe? What the fuck is that shoe he's holding? Is that a slipper or is that a shoe? What the fuck is that shoe?
But you know I don't give a speck of shit about Makhachev versus Macarena, because this was a Shevchenko fight card.
Strong, kind, and brave. true, you sometimes do, but mostly when you're feeling sad, it drives me mad, but I still
Where do we go from here? Where do you turn your gaze when you've seen from the top of the mountain? Sure, I could try and talk about UFC 323 and the developing storylines from that card, but it's late, and I'm tired. The new year is almost upon us, and another dominant win from Valentina seems like, for me, the natural endpoint for this year's wrap-up. And with that, all that's left to say is Diamond Dave, take us home.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them blue for me and for you. I think to myself, oh yeah, what a wonderful world.
Actually, Diamond Dave, don't worry about it. You're good, man. It's fine. You can finish up.
Mm-hmm.